right, so you know what's crazy? Like I'm not going to lie to you. Me and Sal talked about this. We watched some of the college football playoff stuff. Like, I don't know. College sports to me just does not feel the same. It really does not. And, growing up here, it was always, all right, when is Ohio State on? When's Michigan on? When's USC on? When's, Texas or Notre Dame, obviously. A little West. I remember Army being on a little bit when I was a kid. But it was the big schools, right? Wisconsin, ABC. And, I was never a huge college football fan until I really started my career. And then I got into it. I worked in Michigan, so I was going to Michigan games, whatever. But I did actually really start to really enjoy it. College basketball, I've been in and hooked on since I could remember, which is why, I love Lou Carnesecca the way I do. Rest in peace, Coach. Why Chris Mullins, one of my all-time favorite players and idols. That Final Four team, what the Big East used to be. If there is a documentary or a book that was written or something of substance or record about the Big East, I can promise you I have inhaled it. Because there was nothing like when I was a kid going to CYO basketball practice and then going to it's not even there anymore, it sucks, the Foursome Diner in Brooklyn with my dad who was coaching us. And reading the New York Post and reading the Daily News, having a conversation about the different articles we were reading, then exchanging papers, going through the box scores, and racing home to watch St. John's play at noon. And a lot of those games were at the Garden against Patrick Ewing, or Rolly Massimino with Nova, or Boeheim with Pearl Washington and Derek Coleman. Like, it was just, people don't believe me about this. When I say, whether it's on pods or whatever, when people ask me about the old Big East, like, you got to understand, and I'm leading into St. John's here, there was a point, specifically St. John's this year, there was a point where St. John's was bigger than the Knicks. Like, if you go back and look at all the attendance numbers from before they drafted Patrick Ewing first overall in '85, when Pat was still at Georgetown and Mully and Barry and those guys were going to the Final Four, they would sell out. Back then, the Garden was 19,763 seats, okay? A little different now with the new configuration. It's up there, but it's a little different. And then the Knicks might have 12,000 when Bernard King ripped up his knee before Patrick came. And it was just a completely different energy. And I can't speak to this. I know the history, but I know what, Lapchek before Coach Carnesecca came. What St. John's has always meant to the city. And Vaccaro wrote, and I see him all the time at the Garden, even when they're down, and they've been down for so long. Mike Vaccaro does a great job of at least keeping them somewhat relevant, like a flicker of hope. But man, if you're a 30-year-old St. John's fan, instead of me who's 51, what have you had? You didn't see our test. If you did, you don't remember it. Mullen, that may as well have been 1920. So it's crazy. I say all this about college, from the college football to the college basketball, to paint this imagery. If St. John's wasn't around, I would not care about college basketball, maybe at all, because the game has changed so much, and the NIL era and the constant volatility of rosters and, kids transferring, bouncing around. I don't know why. I do it for a living. I call the games with Mink. I don't know who half these kids are. I don't mean on St. John's roster. I mean on Marquette, who's number 7 in the country, because it always changes, or UConn, or Xavier, or Butler, or Seton, whatever. It's very different. But the crazy part about this resurgence by St. John's, who, by the way, is now off to their best start since 1984-85. And there is one man who would have delivered that, and that is Pitino. And there's not another person in this world that could have pumped the life into St. John's that Rick Pitino has already pumped life into. St. John's, it saddened me. So now they still got to keep going, and they're definitely going to make the tournament. But, do a little damage. Don't just be one and done, right? You know how many times I left the Garden saddened to myself? I mean, I wouldn't necessarily tweet about it, and I wouldn't talk about it on the air because nobody cared about St. John's enough to talk about it on the air except me and like a few diehards. So I got to deliver the content that is most meaningful. And I would be saddened by the fact, because in my heart I'm like, damn, like everything that I had, everything that I grew up with, wearing that starter jacket to the schoolyard, or, that St. John's hoodie on the layup line at CYO, or the red and white Nike Dunks in CYO, because that's what the guys at St. John's wore. And there's a lot of my friends who are listening now, guys on the job, guys whatever that I grew up with. We all thought and lived the same thing, and then it just died like it was extinct. So I was saddened by the strong, not the fact because it's been disproven because of Rick, but in my mind, the strong notion that St. John's was dead in the conventional sense of what they were like at the apex of my childhood. And here we are, Rick Pitino. And guess what? The flame is strong.